Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. This is the DevRel show. This is the first episode. This is a project that I was thinking about for the last couple of years and for different reasons, never took the time to do it. And now it is happening. So 21st of September 2023 at 3 p.m. EDT. This is the first episode of the DevRel show. Yay, super excited. For those of you, actually, I was going to say, I'm used to do other live stream. I was going to say, for those of you that are new to the DevRel show, like everybody is new to the DevRel show, this is a show made by a DevRel person. Myself, I'm Frederick Harper. I'm a principal developer advocate at KubeFirst. And this is a show I do on my personal time, but it's still sponsored by my employer because they're supporting me in that new show, that new endeavor. And it's called the DevRel show, not just because I'm in DevRel, but my plan, at least initially, we'll see how it goes in the future, but initially it's to have guests that are developer advocate, technical advocate, name the title that is around developer relation. And that's going to be a show done in two parts. First part, we're going to talk about DevRel. Actually, sorry, we're going to start to learn a little more about the guest because, it's a people-centric show. It's all about the guest. And it's also about DevRel. So we're going to talk a little bit about DevRel, what it is. And there is a second part where I want the audience and myself, of course, to learn about new shit. Either like new technology, programming language, software, things around developer relation, or things that matter to a technical audience, a developer, DevOps, GitOps practitioner. So a part about discussion between two people about what they do, DevRel, and a part about demo. So on that note, actually, you know what? I really like the countdown, the music. That was pretty cool. So it's why I'm whole pumped up. Like, just not because it's the first episode. I think the music was nice. So thanks to me for putting that countdown. But with that said, the gentleman that is nodding on the screen and disapproving mostly everything I said is a good friend of mine, Chris Heilmann. Thanks for being in the show. Welcome.
Hello. And your cat already fell asleep, so she's not very supportive. That's just, it's like just go in the corner and fall asleep and see what's going on there. This is quite amazing.
She was like, Fred is just talking and talking again, and she cannot hear you, so she's still probably gonna sleep. So yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be that kind of show. Chris already bitched me, and it's been not even 3 minutes we're live, but that's the kind of relation we both have, to be honest. So Chris, thanks a lot for accepting to be my first guest. It's the first show. I was like, I need to have someone, and that's going to be probably one of the only time in my life I'm going to praise Chris. So it's recorded, it's live, I'm done. That's going to be on the internet forever. But I wanted to have someone who has experience in developer relation. Chris has been doing this for a long time. And also, I know Chris, we've worked together, we're friends. I know he is a good person to discuss about like different things. He is entertaining. He is friendly-ish, depends who you talk to. And I just want like Chris going to be a first good guest, and unfortunately he said yes. So now he is here today. But joke aside, super happy to have you here. So for those people that live in a cave and don't know who the hell you are, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, I'm Chris. I live in Berlin now. I've been in London for 16 years before that, in America and in India. And I've wrote the first developer advocacy handbook in 2006 when I worked for Yahoo, and I couldn't get promoted anymore. So I was a web developer. I'm a web developer for 25 years now, and I was basically a web front-end architect, something, I don't know, head of front-end development. And then it was like, okay, what's the next step for Chris? It's like, you have to go into people management. I didn't want to do that. So I actually said like, hey, how about I do developer evangelism? And people asked me what that was. So I wrote a handbook in 2 afternoons that I then put online. And since then it kind of blew up. And a lot of people have been using it to train their own developer advocates and developer evangelists as well. I've been updating it sporadically from time to time. And then I was principal, then I was developer evangelist at Yahoo. Then I went to Mozilla, became principal developer evangelist there. And then I went to Microsoft and was principal developer evangelist there. Then I pivoted into TPM, like the technical product manager, where I worked on the developer tools. So I kept with the developer thing. And yeah, then when Microsoft, like a few months ago, cut a lot of people, I was one of the one that was on the wrong spreadsheet. And I ended up now being at a new company called WeAreDevelopers. Not a new company, but new company for me, where I'm now the VP of developer relations. So I've been doing the DevRel thing for quite a long while, and I always saw it as an opportunity for a developer to stay within the company, stay technical, but actually get rid of all the issues that annoyed that person before. And I think that's something that, to me, a lot of people keep forgetting, that developer advocacy goes both ways. It's really an advocacy thing where you go outside, you tell people about your products of the company, you make outside developers happy by making it easier for using their products. But you also have to be there for the developers internally. First of all, not stealing their thunder, not being like the spokesperson for them and them not getting any credit for it. And secondly, also to make sure that they got the right time and resources to make the product that you're advocating really, really good, and actually make sure that they have the right resources and also infrastructure in place so they can actually be their best in developing these things. And also you're a firewall for them. So a lot of the outside requests, you're triaging for them, you're translating into work items, and you should be integrated into the day-to-day work of your developers. And that's something that I think we keep forgetting nowadays, where a lot of people are like, okay, DevRel is like you go to conferences and talk about cool stuff. I think it's two ways. And especially I think with the market being so weird and so aggressive at the moment, thanks to a certain person that bought something called Witter. I don't know what it was. But basically, I feel like it's like 1920s when factory owners basically sacked or treated their employees really badly. And it feels like the same thing is happening to IT right now. So right now is a really good time to be an advocate for the people in your company, to make sure that you're actually not ending up with like not knowing who to work for in the nearer future. So yeah, it's interesting that from like the only market that was growing, we're now seen as as a market where you can sack people nilly-willy. And I think that's something where we have to stand up as well, because our job as developer relations people is also communicating to upper management and to management the wealth, or the how much developers are needed for your company, and that they can't be replaced by ChatGPT.
Yeah. Like, you touched so many points of like things I wanted to discuss. That was a hell of an intro. For those that are curious, the book that Christian was talking about is at developer-advocacy.com. It's available out there. Really interesting. If you are starting in the DevRel space, if you are an employer and wondering if you need DevRel, but also even if you have experience, like there's no way for anyone, no matter how long you've been in DevRel, to know everything. So it's a great resource for that. So developer-advocacy.com. This is the link. This is where all the magic is from the book Chris wrote in 2 afternoon only. I guess like you did a lot of updates since, because like there was so much content that I don't believe it took only 2 afternoon. But with that said, yeah, you touched base a lot of things. What I said before, like we know each other for a while. We used to work at Mozilla at the same time. Actually, I joined. Christian interviewed me. I'm probably sure he said to our manager at the time, I have a big memory blank. Damn.
You came recommended from somebody else we know at Microsoft before. So it was Ray Bango that actually knew you already. So he said like, oh, he's looking for a job. So and he's Canadian, so that's a good time zone. So what about him? So that's how that happened.
Oh yeah, no. I was just looking for the word, the name of Mark Hogans, and I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure you said to Mark, don't hire Fred. Is not a good person, but like he had such an overwhelming feedback about me that he said, no, it's great. No, joke aside, we had a great time. There was a great time at Mozilla. There was during the time where like Mozilla was doing Firefox OS, which I still have mixed feeling about. Like, I think it was a really nice platform. Maybe the execution may not be there, like the timing was not there, but like giving the opportunity for developers to use like HTML and CSS and JavaScript, like the technology didn't know as web developer to create application, to give like an affordable platform, affordable phone. I think it was pretty nice, but that's a story. That's what we used to do. As you listed, you had a couple of different jobs since. And before we move toward like some of the point you talked about, like specific about DevRel and what is the role and what we should do and the opportunities we have right now, I would like you to maybe just talk a little bit about like WeAreDevelopers. So the company you work for right now, like what is the company? What do you do? And also, what's your role as a VP of DevRel? Like, what's your job there?
Okay, before we do that, I quickly want to tap on the Firefox OS thing. It was a failure, business-wise. It didn't sell. It was not basically rolled out. And at the same time, we got so many good contacts during that time. I'm talking to a company tomorrow again that's really rolling out a completely encrypted phone. And basically a smartphone that people can use without doing any sharing. It's like used by the police in Switzerland and like really hardcore. And the only way I got to know these people, and this is a super exciting project, was because a product manager from Mozilla that I worked with on Firefox OS basically said, Chris knows about mobile and web. So whatever, even when you're in a company that has a failing product, there's lots of people that you can meet around that actually will affect your future as well. So never leave in anger, never think that something is just complete useless because it wasn't rolled out. We invented a lot of good stuff for HTML5 that then led to PWAs and led to other things. Sadly enough, most of the things were abused by bad actors before for like security issues and security attacks. So a lot of these APIs that we created back then were kind of like too like believing and trusting, like, so a lot of these APIs were easy to use and now they're not as easy to use because we actually had to put a lot of security things in there. But the research that went into HTML5 for Firefox OS is like, I think, a big part of why the web is now the way it is, like with Project Fugu and all the other things that make the web what it is nowadays. Now, WeAreDevelopers is a job board that basically, that's our bread and butter. We basically are the biggest job board in Europe for IT jobs, and it's actually Europe based. So the company is in Vienna, and we have our own office sharing space thing in Berlin as well, and we also run a huge event called the developer. WeAreDevelopers World Congress once a year, and that's like 12,000 people, 600 speakers, 400 moderators. So it was basically quite intense to actually run that thing. It's 2 days, and we had like this one big space here in Berlin where we ordered it. We also have a series of online live video series. Today was one, yesterday. That basically is just the same as here. Like we go to StreamYard, we talk to people, and we have a whole day of live events. And my job is to a degree to find interesting people to talk on these things. And we also have a series called Coffee with Developers, where it's just like a half hour or 20-minute thing, like, hey, talking about people's careers, how they came into development. So my job as VP of DevRel is I came in to actually turn that around a bit and shifted from just being a job board and one conference a year to being an ongoing resource where people want to go. So I took over the newsletter and the curation of that one. And I took over the curation of all the video series as well. So I do a lot of video production and interviewing people online and meeting people in real life and interviewing them and bringing the DevRel resourcing, so to say, in there. Like rather than having just jobs in our newsletter, we have cool articles or interesting articles for developers and great. Interesting essays for developers in our newsletter as well. Our newsletter has like 90,000 to 100,000. It's fluctuating subscribers right now. Oh, so wow. That's pretty scary as well when you send that out and you're like, did every link work really? But it's an interesting challenge. And I chose WeAreDevelopers as my new company because I had quite a few offers, weird ones as well. Because of two reasons. One of them, they allowed me to work from home, which I wanted to do because I've done it for 18 years. And secondly, they actually are a job site. And I think as I hinted earlier, the job market is pretty broken at the moment. And I love to have that handle of saying like, okay, why is it that I, as somebody who wants to have a job, read a job description and annoys the hell out of me, and I, as a recruiter, get a CV that actually makes no sense to me. So that communication gap that we have between people that have jobs and people that want jobs is kind of frustrating when you see in other markets that people have a really hard time even getting one job offer. So I think it's time to tackle that part of our job as well, and not see every recruiter as the spawn of Satan, and not every developer as just a person that wants more and more money and is a spoiled little kid that wants too many things.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be fixed, and I think technology has been fixed to a degree. I mean, I worked on Chromium now for the last 9 years, and it's a great platform. And Firefox is a great browser. Arc browser does interesting stuff. I think the web platform is coming to its limits to what is actually necessary to match native. So it wasn't that much of a challenge for me anymore. So I thought, let's go into the social aspect of it and make sure that we actually have a work environment that is a good work environment, and not just one where people throw a lot of money at like kids until they're burned out at the age of 23.
That's funny because I had the same discussion with myself recently about that. And like there is a cool thing about working in startup, working in tech company where like the focus is a tech product, because you have like I like to learn new stuff, so usually there's like the learning part of it. I like to create stuff, so usually for me it was always around like an API or SDK or something that I could like build things with it. But at the same time, it's a little bit tiring when you do this for a while, where you always switch to the next project. And we're talking a little bit before the show when like startup pivot to another product that it's not really what you sign up for. It's not something that you're as excited about. And I was talking with people that recently that wanted to start doing DevRel, and what I was telling them is that you really need to be a good DevRel person. I firmly believe that you need to be excited about your product, about what you do, but you also need to be challenged. And I think maybe it's not true for everyone, but like at least it's true for me. Like I need a challenge. I need to have things that, maybe a little bit easier because I'm doing this for a while, but also things that are a little bit harder because I don't know the technology, because it's a new medium, because it's a new industry that I don't know. And I think you need that to be excited. So super happy for you. I was a little bit sad when I saw that you were let go from Microsoft. You have been there for a while, and I used to work at Microsoft before joining Mozilla. And seriously, as much as people used to hate Microsoft, and when I was there, like people were like, "Oh, you work for Evil Empire." Like they did a 360 in a direction where, like, oh my god, like it's like they were more open, they're going the right direction. And I was like, no, I think it was great. But so I had a great time. So I didn't leave because of that. So I was happy when you joined. I was a little bit sad when you let you go. But now I'm super excited that about your new journey, which you seem to be excited also about. So yeah,
I do like that you described the company doing a 360, which is like basically going back to their old ways. So
that's such a.
It's
I was
that's an
wondering.
interesting. Let's do a 720. Like it's interesting though. Like I'm not grumpy. I think it's just a matter of the market going to pot. And the problem is, like, no matter how rich a company is, if the share price goes down, the profitability per head is how the stock market sees what you do. And then basically they have to see like how can we cut costs, and that's basically cutting people. That's the wrong way of saying it. Getting like having headcount reduced is probably the word, or it's an interesting one because I'm quite sure there will be a lot of like rehiring in the near future of these lots of layoffs that happened there. I mean, if I look at things like Twitter and I saw the numbers of engineers that worked on Twitter before, I was just like, why? But I mean, now that what they have left and how the whole project falls into disarray is basically a really good show to actually see that, like, you can shrink unhealthily, and the market applauds you for it. but it really makes no sense to basically have no people in place that can
Oh yeah.
fix things when they're necessary.
And there's a reason why you had like that size of a team, and maybe it's because your process were not well rounded, but it's because they were not well rounded. So maybe you didn't need all those people, but like if you cut them even before doing the work of like putting the best practices in place and like just being sure that you're gonna be able to function with a smaller number of people, it is exactly what you said. Like you see what's happening on other platform or company that have done the same thing. You were talking a little bit before about the fact that like you took over the content at the new company at WeAreDevelopers, and also you're like part of your job now, or part of like DevRel, the companies, to connect with people, create new connection. And I think you touch base on like two important part of the role when you're a developer advocate, either as like an individual contributor or part of the leadership team. Like there's obviously the content creation part, but what I really love of what you've done is that I feel, and it's a personal opinion, which I assume you would agree, but like I feel like if your content creation is only about what you sell, about your product, I feel you're doing it wrong. And I like the fact that what you said is that now in your newsletter, it's not just about our events. We're also sharing other interesting content for developers, because it needs to resonate with your audience. It needs to be interesting. And like if you're just pushing your own agenda, your own stuff, you're not really always helping your audience, and it becomes like a sales newsletter. I don't know if you agree with that. That's kind of my vision when it comes to like creating content.
Yeah, and I think you had an interesting point as well, that basically when you start somewhere as a DevRel person and you're not promoted into a DevRel role or pivot into a DevRel role from being in that company already, your first job is actually to do an analysis of what's happening at the moment, to actually look at the product. And if you as a developer have no idea how to get started, the first job would be to have like proper code examples, think about documentation, not only get people excited about the product, but also of the inner workings of the product. So if you realize that it's really hard for somebody to contribute, for example, to an open source or an open core product, and then there's missing documentation, and there's missing examples, then there's missing excitement. And your first job would be to actually make sure that you yourself understand the project. And that's a great opportunity to write documentation, to write things down that you're actually stuck with, and then ask an engineer what's going on there, and then find the way to translate that for an outside audience. So the getting to know the product is already part of your job. And that's also something where you have to stand your ground and say like, hey, you're there to actually sell our product. No, that's what salespeople do. I'm there to explain your product, to make your product interesting, and to make it easier for you to hire engineers and technical people, and also get outside contributors for your product. So that's the difference between sales and DevRel to me. So if you as the DevRel person just gets hired to do rah-rah on stage and do YouTube videos and to get TikTok videos, that's a part of it. That can be it. And I'm happy that there's lots of people coming from marketing into DevRel. But I think it's not the technical DevRel that actually is, to me, a part of a technical environment and a technical company. So this is something that an agency could do as well, that you could outsource. But I think the real power comes from like the communication with the engineers in the company, and being a spokesperson for them and being a translator for them to the outside world.
Yeah, and like I really like what you said also about two things. About the documentation. Like one of the first thing I do when I join a new company is that like the team, usually the team or the engineering team or my managers or like whoever I report to, they're like, hey, if you have any questions about the project, let us know, or we can give you a deeper demo about the product to show you all the feature. And most of the time I say no. First, I learn a little bit about it like before the interview process. But once I'm in the job, the first thing I do is use our own documentation. If it's not like a super early startup that don't really have documentation, because they don't really have like a product yet. But like I use the documentation, and I try to use the product or the tool or the service as like any other user would do. And that is such a good start, because let's be honest, most of the time, documentation is not that good. It depends on the company. Like I've been in a company where they had technical writer, or even the engineering team does, like they did a really good job. But most of the time, the docs is not at a stage where it's good enough to help like any new users coming in. And like doing it that way, it really helps helps me to like understand the docs, see where I can improve stuff, and understand the product also. So that's really a good way to start. You touched base also about like how you see DevRel, which I love. And I usually cut people into like just head comment, but like you're such in a good flow that I don't want to disrupt that. So I'm just coming back after. But like one of my biggest issues, I've been doing DevRel since like it's been maybe 12 years now that I'm different developer relation role, either as an IC or leadership team. And my biggest issue with DevRel is the lack of comprehension about the role from different people and from different companies. So I try to be that kind of like spokesperson for myself as a DevRel person to the people in the company, but it's not always easy. And one of the biggest problems is that people often see developer advocate or people working DevRel as just like a cool new term for a salesperson. And I spend so much time to tell people I'm not a salesperson. Exactly what you said. What I say people is that if I do my job well and being provided with a project or a product that is interesting for people and that solve their issue and that bring them enough value. But like if I have that and I do my job well, a positive side effect of my job is yes, we will get more users. A positive side effects of my job is that yes, I will probably get more paid users. But my job is not to have like show you after the end of the quarter a spreadsheet about like how many users I convert from like not using the product to how many use, or how many users went from like unpaid user to like, oh, now they reached the first tier or they moved to the second tier of the pay feature. If that's the byproduct of my job, but like I'm not a salesperson, and I really like how you say that. It's a pet peeve of mine, and it's fine if some people want to do it. But for me, it's not my vision of developer relation. It's not how I see the role. And I think personally, you should not be that. Like it's really strong preference, I guess.
Definitely not. But I think we also have to be adult about it, that we actually have to work with the sales team to make sure that we actually get funding. There's far too many super stories about DevRel can do whatever the hell they want, and like it doesn't matter. So you really have to work closely with sales to make sure that somehow what you do is actually having an effect. That might be getting a company excited and getting your foot in the door, because your sales team has always been saying like, oh, we tried to contact this company for years and years, none of them answer in there. You go to an event, you meet an engineer from that company, you get excited talking to them about, or get them excited about your solutions. And then that way you offer like, hey, I can talk to your boss about this. And that way you get your company in through the back door to get the salespeople to talk to their salespeople. So the whole concept of like, we get paid to do cool shit and be at events has been quite a movement for quite a while in the DevRel space. And I think it's something that we have to now realize that basically when you look at the headcount reduction, like DevRel people were the first ones to go in a lot of companies. And that actually showed me that you did not do a good job as a DevRel person, because you did not sell the value of your work back to your company. So somehow, somewhere, something has to come in from what you do. And it might take a long time to measure that. It's always the worst thing is when people ask you like, okay, you're going to this event, what can we get tomorrow out of it? And I'm like, probably nothing. But probably I can show you like 600 people clapped, and that means actually not much. But I can show you like the contacts I had with the people there. I can show you the sponsors that are at that event beforehand. That's what I do right now. When I go to an event, I actually get the listing of all the speakers and their companies, the sponsors that are at this place, and I go to our marketing team and our sales team and say like, I'll be at this event. Are any of these people exciting to you? Because you tried to get them as partners for a long, long time. You didn't have a chance to, so I can I can talk to these engineers and talk to these other presenters and get ourselves in that way. So I think it's very, very important that you also realize that you are actually costing the company a lot of money, and somehow this money has to come back in again. And this is something that has been kind of weird. I don't know. At the time, the biggest problem was that during COVID, every tech company thought that's now the gold rush. Like, okay, everybody has to work from home. Everybody has to use computers. We're going to have so many users actually coming from this. So all of them hired like mad. And then later on, it didn't turn out to be that bad. And well, it turned out to be horrible, but it didn't turn out to be that we couldn't go back to a normal-ish life. So all the gold rush didn't come. And then there was also like inflation coming and the stock market crashing and the war in Ukraine. So everything came in like differently. So they had to get rid of a lot of people that they hired before as well. But I also remember one company that I shouldn't name that's in near Seattle, at one time like just ramped up immensely in the DevRel space. They hired like 150 people, and all of these people were the super loud people on Twitter and the super loud people on YouTube, and they're all like, okay, cool. So now we work for this company, but they didn't actually do much with the products of that company. So they tried to take the fame of somebody, that fake social media fame, and turn it into like, okay, just because I've got 100,000 followers on Twitter, company XYZ should pay me money. And I'm not even talking about their product. I'm talking about like how to create turn robots with JavaScript around. And like, that's great, but it's not really anything for the company. So I think as a DevRel person, you should also remember that your company pays you, and your job is to make that company have more users. I'm now giving myself the goal to actually get that with the stuff that I put in the newsletter, to get many more people get that newsletter, because that's actually where we advertise jobs as well and where people can find things. So I know that what I do should be measurable, and I think a lot of people who go into DevRel see it as this like cool job where you can just hang out at events and just be cool on YouTube or Twitter. And it's not that. You have to be measurable as well, and you have to be a valuable asset to your company.
To be honest, when I my first job, I thought it was that, and my first job, it was a little bit of that. But after that, I realized like, okay, it's not exactly that, but I still love what I do. And again, I kind of agree with everything you said. The only maybe addition that I would say is that you said at some point like, oh, it's kind of like if you've been let go, it's kind of your fault because you did not really like show the value of DevRel. And I agree with that, but sometimes it's also not easy, not in the sense of like you should be able to sell the value of what you do. You're getting paid to do something. If you do something, you should know what you're doing and what's the value of your job. But sometimes people are just not receptive to that. And sometimes also DevRel, you touch base a little bit like that, but DevRel for me is a medium to long-term type of impact job. I mean, like there's a lot of quick win that I can have, but like if I do my job well, most of the time I set things in place. I set the foundation of a relationship. I set the foundation like, okay, I start a new show. Like, yeah, nobody's gonna, or nearly nobody's gonna come live, but like I need to start somewhere, and you're gonna see the impact in like medium to long-term time. And it does not resonate always well with companies, especially in the startup industry where like you need to have result now, you need to have conversion now, and people, or even the medium to big size company where the way to measure is like a spreadsheet with diagrams and like amount of money, or like that new curve that goes like that, or like you reach more this, or you get more percentage of that, or like more views on this and that. But like to be able to do that with people when your job is to connect with people, it takes time. So don't feel bad if that happens to you. And I say that because that happens to me where I lost my job. And I'm pretty sure I was kind of good at like selling DevRel, doing this for a while. I love it. I think I got a grasp on like what it was, but it did not resonate with my employer. Or they had a vision about what it was, and we were talking a little bit about that before the show. We had like kind of like a pre-show before the show, just because it's been a while we didn't talk, and we're talking about DevRel also because it's her job, it's her passion. We do this for a while, and the thing also is that there's some preconception about what is the job, that like even if you discuss about the job during the interview and like you seems to understand that everybody agree on the same kind of vision as you, on the back of their heads they still have like the salesperson vision or like the purely traditional marketing vision. Like when they realize that like, yeah, we discuss one thing but you're not going the direction you want, and it's probably because I'm just like a whole man yelling in the cloud that like, hey, like this you're like, yeah, this is what my vision of DevRel, and I'm going to be open. I'm going to work with every other department, but after doing this for a while, there is things that I know I don't want to do and that I'm not going to do. And when they realize that when it's not in the vision that for me is not DevRel is not always going well. So anyway, I'm just complaining about stuff now, probably putting live some frustration of my past life. But yeah, and it's still a really exciting job, being able day to day to help people to be successful, using the visibility you have to give visibility to other people, to bring other people on the stage. It's just fun. It's just a great job. It's not always like that though, but I would say it's a great it's a great job.
Yeah, I think we can turn it around. I mean, if you start as DevRel somewhere and there is no request of like how you're measuring yourself, like that's a warning sign to me. That basically means some director thought it's a good idea to do DevRel.
Yeah.
He's the sponsor of it. There's like some budget for it for the first half year. And then if that director goes somewhere else or dies or goes or gets retires, then you're basically stuck. So I think it's a very important thing that when you start somewhere, that you actually question the company as well, like what they see you as, what your deliveries are, and what you should be doing. I mean, I'm in the lucky position that I got hired as a director, and 2 months later I got promoted into VP because it was my own department, and I got my own team now to run. But it's basically, if you're just starting somewhere, you should be seriously honest about this and say like, hey, I feel I should give back to the company. How do we measure what we're doing? Like, and have a few ideas for them to do, because as companies are confused about the idea of DevRel, it's very important that you actually become billable to the company as well. And as you said, it shouldn't be a sales pitch to actually bring them numbers, but it should actually say like, hey, I want to talk to the salespeople. I want to talk to the marketing people. I want to use the products that they use, like the CRM systems and these kind of things, to get them contacts that they don't have before. So you come into a company as a communicator when you are working as DevRel. So you should sell yourself as a communicator as well, and not as just somebody who goes out there and gives out stickers and T-shirts.
I totally agree. We have Nitin Parmar, and sorry, DevRel has really evolved in the recent years. What do you think are the most important skills to develop as a developer advocate today? So, Christian, I'm going to let you answer this one.
I mean, the communication skills have always been a part of it. Like, you have to be a good writer, you have to be a good listener, and you have to be a good translator. But what I learned the last few years, which I'm so really focusing on right now, is also multimedia production, like video production and animations, and doing like spicing up your documentation. Back in the days, you could send people to a docs page and that basically were excited. But nowadays you have to actually go and have short videos, have Instagram things to get people in. I was really fascinated when I worked with VS Code and they asked me to do something for TikTok. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing at TikTok? I'm an old man. That's just wrong. But then I realized it's like, oh my God, what an addiction machine TikTok is. I hated it from the very beginning. But then I realized there's a Tech Talk hashtag, for example, where students look in TikTok. And I'm not going to go into the privacy and security idea of that, because that scares the hell out of me. But I had 1.7 million views in the first half hour. And then I looked at the comments and I expected it to be a complete cesspit like YouTube comments. But it ended up being like really good questions, and other students answering their questions and really answering them, not like you should use this instead. It was really fascinating to see that there is a subculture inside even something like TikTok to actually get people excited and document things. The other thing that I also thought was skills to develop is that what I said with the working inside the company and communicating inside the company. You want to avoid being the person that just gets hired to be a social media person and to do that. The greatest example, I think, was at Microsoft, when I worked with the docs team. The documentation team is the people that write a technical documentation about everything in Microsoft, and it's all on GitHub. It's all in Markdown, so I could help them a lot, and I could write a lot of stuff for them. Now, as a developer advocate, I write exciting things. I write to get people excited, and then when I talk to them and say like, "Hey, why isn't all the documentation like that?" They basically told me docs are the last place that people go to. So they don't want to get rah-rah. They just want to get like, here's 5 steps what to do to get to the result that you want to do. So learning how technical writers function and why the writing is like that, gave me opportunities to do like little videos, little tweets, little whatevers, to point people to that documentation and get them excited about the feature that the documentation is writing about. Sending them to the documentation then made it measurable for us, because they had the tracking and everything on the different docs there that I didn't know about. Like I hate doing like UTM links and these kind of things and having to measure it. So I think the as DevRel is not this like weird thing that nobody knows what it is anymore. I think it's super important to know the structure of your company and how you interact with different parts of your company when you start in DevRel. So video production, knowing about working with the other people. And that's especially also with social media. Like almost every company has a social media department right now. And you don't want to be in the situation where you say something great on stage and the social media channel is something completely different. So being a communicator in these different departments, with these different departments, I think is as important as just knowing how to write and how to do videos.
I couldn't have said it better. To like a couple of things about that. The TikTok is really interesting, because also my first reflect was like, I'm too old for that, so I didn't do it. But like learning from someone like you, who is older than me, and doing the TikTok, I'm like, that's great. And yeah.
At least I got hair.
Oh, damn, that hurts. That hurts.
A beautiful face needs a lot of space.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, one of my first manager in DevRel told me, like, one of your goal is go where they go. It was at Microsoft, actually, and this is exactly what you've done with TikTok. It's like, if your audience is there, even if you don't feel it's your platform, or even if you don't feel that it's something that may be super excited for you, I mean, like, if the people are there, like, you need to be there. It's your job to be there. So I like that. And the other thing that we don't talk enough about is, yes, the communication skills, but internally, like working with other people. Like, I always say that you cannot be a successful DevRel person if you're just a DevRel person and you don't work with other people. Like, basically, at every company I worked at, I usually work with all departments, because there is something to work together. Like you were talking about the sales teams. I'm not against sales. It's just not something that I personally enjoy to do. And it's not something that I think should be the end result, or actually one of like the main tasks of what the DevRel person does. But I work with the sales team, and I work with the marketing team, and I work with the support team to understand what kind of question to get. Like, is there any content that I can create that would help them to have like that one link to rule them all that I can send, to have like, or having less support questions. So like, working with every department is important. Also, not just for you, but also for them. Like, it's a symbiosis. Is it the word in English? Like, symbiosis. I don't know how to say that word. Relation. And I always say also symbiotic. Thank you. And I always say also, it's like a developer relation is also a whole company thing. It could not be just like the DevRel team. It couldn't be just like the developer advocate. Like, everybody do DevRel in their own way. So you need to be that like person who foster that developer relation in another department and other people. So I liked it. And the only thing I would add to your list is, and I think you said it with like being a good listener and everything, but like having empathy for people, being empathic, because like most of the time, you're going to have discussion that's going to be super interesting. People are excited about your product, but quite often when people reach out to you, it's because they're pissed off, annoyed, it's not working. And you need to understand that, and you need to be nice with the people, because maybe it's easy for you, it may not be for them. And maybe they're starting in the role, and you've been doing this for 10, 20 years. Remember when you were starting with a new product, remember when it was your first role. So having empathy toward the users, toward the people that want to use your product, or even toward the people that talk to you, even if they don't use your product or don't plan to use your product. I think it's quite important. We have another question.
Hang on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
One thing I also realized is over the years that the attention span of people has become much, much shorter. So one big skill nowadays is to have like bite-sized information, snackable information, rather than writing long blog posts, great talks. And the 30 to 40 second TikTok the biggest trick that I found to do that right was basically write myself a script of the video that I want to do, act out the video to my camera, and then basically do the screencast later on, and speed up and slow down the screencast of what I'm showing to the script that I talked about. So it looks like I'm really, really good. I don't make any mistakes, but it's actually fake, and everything else is as well on the internet. So don't trust that anybody can do live coding without errors. But this is a really, really good way to actually do a really 20 to 30-second information piece with tons of information in it, if you actually start from a script and act it out, and then embellish it with, so to say, with the real information as a screencast. So that's a big trick, to actually not do the 15-minute video to get people excited about a single feature.
I like that, and I'm not the only one who like your answers. So Nitin, great answers and insights. Thanks to you both for sharing. It's our pleasure. And can I go to the next question now? You have your permission? Yeah, I wasn't
Sure.
sure.
You don't work for me anymore. I mean, I'm hiring, but
I never worked for you, by the way. We were on the same team. You were more senior than me. I need to say that. And to be honest, I learned from you, but I still remember at one point you kind of like made my day. I think I never told you that, even it's one or two occasions where we had a couple of drinks and I was maybe a little bit drunk and I could have said that. But I remember the first thing we've done together at Mozilla. It was a workshop about Firefox OS in Warsaw, I think in Poland. And I was giving my first talk as like a Mozilla person. And you came to me after and you were like, good job. And actually you said like, oh, finally, like those Microsoft people, like they teach you well. And I was like, first, fuck off. Like I learned by myself. I had great manager, but I was like, damn, like I was a little bit not intimidated, but like that was Chris Heilmann. Like I was working with like a giant of the industry, was doing that job for way longer than me. That was my second job. And I was like, it was like, good job. You did a good job. So I was like, damn it, like that's good. Like I kind of like pat myself in the back. I'm probably sure I said thank you, but I don't think you'd known the effect you had by telling me that, because I was a little bit stressed. I was and you remember at that time, like I was like, English is not my first language, as probably people know, and I think I was getting better, but I was still at the point where I was still not totally confident, and like just having your seal of approval was kind of nice. So yeah, thanks for saying that.
Kindness goes a long way, and I think it's very important to do that from time to time. Also, when you learn something from somebody's blog post or somebody's video, just have a nice comment and say like, hey, great, thank you. This is so powerful, and it doesn't cost you much, because it's really, we put a lot of effort into our work as well, so it makes sense to get some happiness back.
Oh yeah, please do that. Like there's two things about that. Like something that really gets on my nerves, and like all those like Twitter or Instagram account or TikTok that just repost other content. And I'm not even talking about DevRel now. It's just they just repost everybody's content with no credits, and they get all the likes and everything. And I'm like, but at least the credits. Like people took time to create content that you're reusing, so do that all the time. And that just made me thought about the fact that like it's a huge, I think it's a huge benefit from DevRel, is that along the way you help so many people, and sometimes without even knowing it. Like I remember when I was working at Microsoft, I was doing a workshop. It was about like putting application in the cloud, and someone in my room, and it was about Azure, and someone in my room was like, I'm not going to use Azure. That's not good. I'm going to use AWS. And I was like, fine. And I helped that person with an issue they had in AWS. And they were so like, what the heck? You work at Microsoft and you helped me with AWS, that they started to come to another workshop that I was doing about like mobile development with Windows Phone, and like they liked it because it was using HTML. They started to build application. And at some point they reached a point and they told me like 5 years after I left Microsoft, and they were like, Fred, thanks for everything you've done. Now I'm living off like mobile application, like money that I get, and it's because of you. And I was like, what the heck? And it's just like, because you were kind enough to me at that workshop and did not force me to use your product and just help me with another product, I decided to like stay a little bit longer, learn a little more. I like what I saw at the second workshop you've done, and I started to do it, and this is how I made money. So I'm not saying that to say like, oh, Fred, you're so good. It's really not about that. It's more about like the impact you can have on people, sometimes even without knowing it, it's like, I think it's part of like the big benefit of the job is like helping people being successful, no matter what's the definition of like being successful for those people. Yeah. So we had a question from Attenda. David, if you were employed today as the first DevRel staff of a startup, what are the first structures you set up to get the dev tool in front of the right developer? So basically, what's the first things you would do in that new job?
If there's no documentation, start with documentation. If there's no official place where to put documentation and where to actually advocate for the company, which ties into another question in the channel where it's like how to connect your personal brand to the company. Don't. You are basically yourself. So I have my own blog and I keep my stuff there. So everything I write for a company, I keep on the company blogs as well and the company communication channels. And if they don't exist, then create them. Because if something goes wrong and you leave the company and people find like your blog years later with like outdated information, nobody's helped because you get questions that you don't want to answer anymore, and the company is basically not confused that people have this outdated information. So I think your personal brand is something that gets you into the job and also is something that gets people excited about the company they work for. But you have to put an infrastructure in place that things are in the company that if you leave, somebody else can take on as well. So that's the first things that I would do. Make sure everything is documented. Make sure if it's not open sourced yet, then open source it. I mean, I created like GitHub repos without code, but I basically said like, hey, if we're going to open source it in the near future, this thing already exists and people already have a communication channel there. There's READMEs there, there's documentation there, and there are already pull requests and issues there that we can later on put in there. I think these are the biggest bits. And also to have like introduce yourself for the first question again. Introduce yourself as a communication person that actually says like, hey, I'm here to make this company exciting for developers. I'm here to make this company exciting for outside people, but also I'm here for you. So if you have things that you're always annoyed and you wish the product would do, I could also be the person to talk to the director to make that happen. And with the companies that I work with in the US, I had like a fixed office hours in my calendar. So they knew when I will be available for these kind of questions, and they can book slots there to make sure that you're always available with an open ear for them. So I think these are the first bits that I would introduce every company that I start with.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And about the second question that you already answered, but just for the people, it was Orv1. Sorry, John, never know how to say your nickname. John, it's a good friend of mine. We work together at Fitbit. He's also, or actually he changed role now, but he used to be developer advocate. So the question was like, how do you feel about attaching your personal brand to a company? Are there specific pitfalls or recommendation? And Chris answered the question perfectly. I learned that a little bit later, meaning that like at the beginning I was blogging about stuff on my own, like from the company and my own personal blog, and I was trying to use the visibility that I had, even if I didn't have that much at the beginning, to kind of like try to reach a new audience. And I basically it myself on the wall for exactly the things that you said. It's like when I was led the company, moved to something else, like people were asking comments on the blog, and I was like, I don't know, like I didn't use the product for like years and stuff like that. So now what I do is like I use my own medium to amplify the messaging from the company. So it's I retweet, I reshare. Sometimes I had another comment, like I reshare with comments, or like I retweet with the small messages. But the source of truth, like the initial media or whatever messaging that is shared, is like from the company, like social media account, blog, or whatever. So yeah, put those things in place. If they're not there, use them if they're there. And last question we had on the chat, just to confirm, you are hiring, which is what I heard too.
Not 100% sure if I got headcount already, but I got needs. So yeah, we can always talk. So.
Awesome. So reach out to Chris about that. So Chris, I have the impression that we could talk for hours. So I stopped taking notes about the things that I wanted to like ask question about you from things you said, because we've been talking for an hours, and we were just saying that like we should probably most of the time have like smaller bits of contents. We could talk again for a long time, but let's move to the second part of the show where we had a great discussion about DevRel. It was super interesting. And there's the second part of the show. It's more like demoing stuff for either people that are in DevRel, wants to be in DevRel, or a technical audience. So I really don't remember what you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, what you want to demo to us today, what you want to talk about with us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I could talk for hours about like GitHub Copilot and what it does for me in my coding world, because that's basically really the thing. But I keep a lot of talks that I give right now is about AI and UX and how AI helps us. And I think when I talked about earlier about the snippets, for example, the making things easier to do, and people use like ChatGPT to generate blog posts, and it's absolutely atrocious because you always sound like a Californian salesperson. You don't like yourself. So make sure that you're actually not using just generated stuff. So I just want to show two things that I'm using right now to actually turn the materials that I generate into something that is more easier to configure and to use. And let me just present that and share my screen. Don't show these tips again. Share the entire screen. Click again and click again and click again. And now you should see my screen, and we're going into infinity here. So one of the first things I want to talk to you is about Hemingway Editor. This is a text editor that I've been using for ages, and it basically is really good because it shows you the grade of your reading thing. Make sure this is as low as possible because people are not dumb, but they don't have time. So making your stuff readable and understandable is basically much better than trying to sound clever with like really cool words. It actually has all the statistics as well, how many letters, how many characters, and so on and so forth. And it shows you while you're typing that you're actually doing something wrong. So for example, it says here, this sentence is too long. The other sentence is basically hard to read. There's use of passive voice. And in the first iteration of that editor, it's just basically you had to change things yourself. But now it actually has AI generation in there as well. So if you click on it now, you can say, fix it for me. And it actually rewrites that sentence for you in a different grade. So you can actually use that suggestion. And then out of a sudden, one of those red things is gone for you as well. You can do that in all the things that you have in this article, and you can always see it like that. And it's so much better because it's in context rather than like just ChatGPT generating stuff for you. You can also use this one here and say continue writing. And that one basically would then generate content for you, much like ChatGPT would do. And you also see that there's a lot of like weird repetition going on there, which is something that you probably don't want to have. So it actually generates things not according to its own rules. So that's something they have to fix at the moment.
But I really like when did they have the AI stuff? Like, I do not care that much about like the generating stuff, but like the fact that like he fixed the sentence for you, because I'm using Hemingway for a long time, and I didn't use it for the last 2-3 months, I guess. And that's an amazing tool. I love it. It really helps me understand that I write sentences way too long all the time. So that was the big feedback I get like all the time. But I really like that new feature.
And that's a beta right now, I think. So it's invite only, but they should be coming out with it rather soon. So that's one thing. The other thing that I love to use is actually Video Tab. Video Tab is it turns videos into long content, is basically what it says. The marketing material on the homepage is rather horrible, but it's a different story. So what that one is right now, I uploaded a video here, and it creates a transcript from it. So that's something that every tool does. I mean, YouTube does that for you as well. But what it also does is actually take that transcript and run it through ChatGPT to turn it into a blog post then. And it turns into blog posts with quotes, with like headings, and if there's a code example, it would actually be a code block as well. And if I talk about a URL, it automatically makes it a URL. And if I want to add a screenshot here, I can actually scrub through the video itself and add the screenshot from the video in there. This is now a bit slow here. So, okay, here we go. So I can actually scrub real time to the video and import it into the blog post. It also generates all the stuff for YouTube for you, like the description and the header and the tags, and the chapters automatically for you. It also creates summaries for like for SEO stuff, like for description, meta descriptions and stuff. But it also analyzes it and offers tweets for you as well. So it actually goes through if it
Wow.
doesn't stop right now and kill itself for some reason.
Yeah, it's a light demo, of course. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Let's try that again.
I really
Okay.
like that tool. I didn't know about that tool. And what's interesting, like if you're listening and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not a developer advocate. I don't care about those things. When I talk to people that look for a job, when I talk to people that want to start in tech as developers, I always told them, like, if there's a way for you on top of like learning how to be a software developer to share content about your journey, either small bits of video, sharing things on GitHub, like writing blog posts about your learning journey, it helps you to like showcase to potential employer that like you can do the job, or at least like how you're thinking. Or so like creating content is good for everybody right now, not just for DevRel. So those tools are great also for you.
So it's basically Twitter here. Basically, it does tweets for you as well. It also translates the transcript into different languages, and it says like it's 121, which is a typical thing for American companies to say. They tested 3 of them and created lots of them. So you can translate it to other things. You have subtitles generated with the time frames as well. So if you upload it somewhere else and you need to actually have proper subtitles. But what is really amazing as well is that it actually has clips. And clips actually are short video bits of the video. So basically, it takes part of the text and finds interesting bits and then creates the video for you with highlights in the text here. And you can define which actually, how the color is and how big the font is that you want to overlay. And you create a clip just by highlighting part of the transcript. So if I click on the create a clip here and I say, like, I have a little chat, I want to do that. Then you can highlight that one and say, and then it should do something. But again, it doesn't do it right now. But that would basically mean that you now can generate a video from that highlight in the transcript. But I don't know what's happening right now. But that basically would generate these videos, those short videos from the transcript. So in my case, I do recordings with people, and then I go to my, I get my social media team access to this thing and say, like, hey, if you want to quickly have a short video for Instagram and stuff, you can highlight something here, create that clip, and then you, why is it not working? There you go. Create clip from selected words. Then it creates a short video from in the video where you talk about these things, and you can edit the clip here. And you can also highlight the words, text size, color, and so on and so forth. You can actually say switch to vertical. So if you want that video not to be in landscape but in portrait mode, then it should actually do that as well without crashing. But that's something that they've just been talking about in the last few weeks. And I'm in contact with them daily and tell them about cool stuff that I want to see, and they actually go there. Another thing that I want people to remember is that software and stuff that you buy is great, but sometimes you can go really hardcore back to the basics to do things. For example, for our Congress, we had 600 hours of video, and we now have to actually take the audio from these video out and actually send it to a service to get rid of all the clicks and ums and ahs and these kind of things. And our video team started actually saving them by hand from the video files. So I'm going back to FFmpeg for almost everything. If you haven't seen FFmpeg, it's basically, it allows you to do any conversion of video to anything else, and it's a command line tool. And I used it, for example, I had a video where the video didn't work, and I said, like, okay, what do we do now? So I made a screenshot and overlaid audio lines on it. And basically, I did that with a few lines of text. So when I wrote this blog post about it as well. So these very not readable commands, but I explained that in that blog post, allow you to actually have a video and have these audio lines overlaid. So you don't have to buy software for that kind of stuff. You can do it on the command line. And as you can do it on the command line, you can actually batch convert it this way. So when I create a video right now and I need it in different formats, I'm using this little script here that actually is like, here's the sizes, here's all the MP4 files in the folder, and for these sizes, generate all these different sizes in a subfolder. Again, not that readable, but I will blog about it soon as well. So when I now go here, I actually have a full video here, and in the exported, I would have all the videos that I want to have. So I moved them now to Dropbox, so I can't show them where I did this. But basically, think about how you can automate as many things as you can. And FFmpeg is a wonderful thing to generate, to convert video into images, to create images, to even create animations from images. Like you can do a transition from one image to another on the command line. It's a proper Unix tool, so it's completely unreadable and the documentation is horrible. But at the same time, it actually is incredibly powerful. So these are the three things that get me really excited right now, like the video tab thing, the Hemingway editor for writing, and doing a lot of automation for my video team with command line magic that they didn't know existed, and then doing workshops on how they can do it themselves as well.
Yeah, and FFmpeg is like you said it, the docs is not let's say the best out there, but like it's such a popular tool and it's been there since forever that like a Google search, like if you prefer to ask your question in Chat GPT, like it's so used out there, like one search and you know what's the command to do whatever you have to do. So we had like, what was the name of the tool? So I'm not sure which one you were talking about. It started with Hemingway, so it's a really cool editor. It's a paid one. I don't remember. I think I paid for that a while ago, but like it's worth every pennies, every money from it. Super. It really improved my writing. Like it's good because it helps you, but like especially if English is not your first language, or even if it's your first language, like it just helped you to write better. So for me, it was super helpful. I still use it. Love the tool. The second tool was Video Tap, which I did not know existed. I use a tool that was not doing all the thing. I used this script to kind of like do the transcription, which does an amazing job, better than those like auto generation caption things. And you can do the addition with the text, but I don't think they have like all the other features that you talked about Video Tap. So I'm really gonna take some time to check Video Tap.
They do. Descript doesn't, but they're actually ramping up as well. So I'm trying to talk to them as well, because we actually want to have like bulk editing with them, and there is no bulk service yet. So basically, like, okay, got like 60 minutes and a month, and that's like 2 days for us. So it's we really need to ramp up these kind of things. I'm quite sure Azure and AWS and Google Cloud all have these things, but they're actually not really good in telling you about it. It's weirdly enough that you need startups to do that. And another thing that I love to bits, if you want to start writing and you want to start blogging and you don't want to start your own blog, dev.to, like where I put the thing, is just incredibly good. It's just beautifully done. You can just write things in Markdown, and it's a great community around it as well, where you get lots of comments and lots of meet interesting people with your posts on dev.to. So I'm really excited about what they're doing as well.
Yeah, no, amazing company, amazing people behind it. And even if you're not interested in like writing or creating content yourself, it's a great source of information. It's a great learning place. So yeah, it's just a great community overall. So yeah, that's amazing. Great tool. Thanks for sharing, Chris. I think that brings us to the end of the show. One last thing, someone who would like to start in DevRel, like, do you have like one tip that you would say to someone who wants to start and be a developer advocate?
Be a good writer, be a good listener, look at what other people are doing and what excites you, and then analyze it, why it's exciting to you and what you could do. Don't mimic them, but basically go. You can read my book if you want to. There's lots of other courses out there as well. Yeah, basically the biggest thing is to also think about your brand. Like you will be a spokesperson for the company inside and outside. So becoming visible that way is also super important. Like when I hired engineers, I looked at their GitHub profile, and I didn't look at their code. I actually looked at their documentation, how they described their code. And I also looked at how they interacted with people in comments and pull requests. So how they dealt with criticism, how they dealt with people who were confused. So be a good citizen on the web, and that is already a good start to actually get people to see you. And if you want to contribute to something where other DevRel teams do something, that's also a great way to get started. And that might be just fixing a typo, that might be offering a translation, that might be things that they don't have time for.
I totally agree with that. For me, I started to do things that DevRel does, but on my own time. I started to go to meetups and speak to meetup, and I started to write blog posts. And this is how I started to create my kind of like brand that bring me from a role from developer to when a first company was Microsoft at the time noticed me and noticed what I was doing within my local community and on the web, and said like, hey, like, would you like to be paid to do what you do on your free time? And I was like, I think that's a good deal. Like, as much as I love being a developer and coding full time, I'm a people person, I'm a social person. So like that was kind of like the perfect next move in my career for me. So with
The
that said, yeah, I'm sorry.
localization is a really good point. Like if you actually want to stand out to a degree, think about your local language if you're not an English speaker, and do content in that language. I mean, I'm now in a German Golem DE as well as a tech writer, as a freelancer, and I'm also started doing LinkedIn courses in German because I've got 4 courses on Skillshare, and I always wanted to do LinkedIn courses, but I work for Microsoft, so they wouldn't have paid me, so it makes no sense to actually do that. And LinkedIn Learning now invited me, and I did one course that's live, and I do another course now in German, which is painful, but also very interesting because it reaches a completely different audience than what I had before. So sometimes you think like if you can't keep up with the cool kids in DevRel that are actually working for the Googles and the Microsofts and those out there, you might actually find that there's a lot of need for content in localized languages written by a native person that actually is could be a year old and still exciting for people. So that's a great way to actually get into it and then actually become interesting for an American company as well, because they don't want to make their engineers or their DevRel people write content in that language, but they might partner with you as a freelancer.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. So on that note, I want to thank Cube First for giving me the possibility to run that show. So I'm doing that on work time. So this is how they sponsor the show, but I really, really appreciate that. So if you have the chance, go check Cube First. We're basically creating a Kubernetes cluster with everything you need to be production ready in minutes. So give a closer look to it. And on that note, thanks a lot, Christian, for being here. I was not expecting something. Actually, I don't know where I was going with that. I was going to say like it's exactly the kind of show I was expecting. Like nice, interesting discussion, interesting, hopefully for the audience too. Thanks for everyone for the question. That was nice, especially because that was the first episode. So I basically told Chris, like, you're doing that because you're my friend. Like, probably, maybe nobody's going to show up because that's the first show. And we had people who had Christian. So great first episode and amazing guest. Yeah, congratulations. Looking forward for the future episode. So the initial plan with that show is to do that every 2 weeks. So I'm going to try to keep the schedule or every other Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Right now, Eastern daily time. It may change in some weeks because of my schedule and or the guest time zone. So sometimes 3 p.m. is not good for people, but I will try to stick to it as much as possible. And so far, all the show for the rest of the years are booked. I have my guest, but except 28th of December, which is probably a date I won't probably do a show. It's between like during Christmas vacation. But if you are interested to join the show, you're in DevRel, I'm going to be more than happy to have you have a guest. And on that note, thanks again and there's that person leaving comment at the end. Yeah, it's 10 p.m. So thanks again, Chris, for like joining during your evening. That was nice again, and looking forward to my next trip in Berlin, so we can have a drink together.
Cool. See you
All right.
soon.
See you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.